Hi, I'm Sue from Garden Moxie. Welcome to my autumn garden. I have been on a quest to have a garden that looks great all season long. I'm especially reminded of that, how difficult a task that is as we're here at the end of the garden season. But I'd like to give my garden a grade for the season, and I want to share a couple of plants that I thought were A+ performers. They had interest all season long, and I'll definitely be relying on these plants next season to help me on my quest to have a garden that looks great all year. So let's go ahead and get started. For this week's video, I'm going to be focusing on the pollinator garden in the front of my house. Since this garden is actually in the front of the house, it's important that this garden looks good all season long. The season really starts when the daffodils bloom, about the second or the third week in April. And you can see from the images that the garden is really pretty sparse at this point. And I think it could really benefit from having more daffodils added. I had quite a few irises, and you can see the foliage here. By the time May rolled around in the garden, the irises were blooming. You can also see that I've got quite a few self-seeded forget-me-nots, which I think look great. So this image is taken roughly around May 17th. And I want you to pay attention right now to that penstemon. By the middle of May, the purple foliage on this Penstemon Midnight Masquerade looked fantastic, and it matched the Japanese maple perfectly. By the time we hit June 10th, this penstemon was in full bloom and looked absolutely gorgeous. It had light pink flowers, and again, the foliage was this deep, dark purple. The bumblebees loved this plant, and its stems were very strong, and it never flopped over during the garden season. By the beginning of July, you can see the penstemon is still super tall. It stopped blooming, but it is still holding that deep purple color. So here, when we look at the garden at the beginning of July, we've got most of the plants have filled out, and we have a lot more blooms. So by the time we got into July, we had the pink blooms of the Kiss Me over the garden gate. The yarrow was blooming with its yellow flowers, and the penstemon is still looking great. By this time of the season, everything was really starting to fill out, and the flowers were definitely starting to bloom. So this image again is taken at the beginning of July. So you can see pretty much that most of the spaces are being filled in. The zinnias are starting to bloom. We've got the alliums growing quite well, and the yellow of the coronation gold yarrow is really filling out as well. Everything is really coming into its own in the month of July, at the beginning of July. By the time we get to the end of July, we have got, a lot of flowers blooming, and a lot of the space is filled in. And again, I want to highlight the purple foliage of that Penstemon Midnight Masquerade. It is still going strong and looking great, and has been looking great since May. And really, by the middle of July until the end of August, we just have solid flowers. I would say that the garden is definitely peaking in the middle of July with the Verbena bonariensis. We've got the zinnias that are blooming. We've got the heliopsis. Burning hearts are also blooming. And again, we've got this Penstemon Midnight Masquerade looking great. At this point, the alliums are starting to bloom. The coneflowers are blooming, and the bee balm is starting to fade. And you can see here again, it's just a very beautiful sight in the garden at this time of year. July is definitely the time for the pollinator garden. And in the foreground here, you can see the second plant that I absolutely love, and that is this white blooming Nepeta. So by the middle of July, that Nepeta is looking fantastic. Again, we've got the alliums, we've got the zinnias, we've got the coneflowers. Look at the white fluffy Nepeta here in this picture as well. And again, you can see the Nepeta in this picture as well as we move towards the end of July. So now in this image, we're looking at the pollinator garden at the end of August. You can see that the colors are starting to fade a little bit, but we still have plenty of bloom. The only thing that I really don't like in this image is the bee balm. It's looking particularly ratty at this point. That is definitely why I have decided that I'm going to remove the bee balm and move it someplace else. But all the other flowers, the zinnias, the verbena, everything just looks so beautiful at the end of August. And here again, at the end of August, you can see that beautiful white Nepeta, the Millennium Alliums, and the coneflowers just looking lovely at the end of August. Here's the garden on September 21st. Again, the Penstemon Midnight Masquerade is looking fantastic. And here again at the end of September, we are starting to see that the zinnias are really starting to look a little bit rough. I think I might not plant as many of them next season. And here we are in the pollinator garden on October 12th of 2024. This is the end of the garden season. Everything is definitely starting to fade. But once again, I just want to point out, look at the Penstemon Midnight Masquerade. It has held itself through the season, the entire season since the beginning of May. This plant has looked good. So I am definitely giving that plant an A+. The other plant that I'm giving an A+ to is this white Blooming Nepeta. Here we are in the middle of October and it's still filled with pollinators. And even though it's fading, I mean, here we are in the middle of October. I think it still looks great. It gets an A+. As far as an overall grade, I'd give my pollinator garden a B-. It's its second year. There's still quite a bit of refinement that needs to happen. I'm excited about next season. If you have recommendations on plants that you feel hold their own through the whole season, I would love to hear your recommendations. Please leave some comments below. And that's it for this video, friends. I'll see you in the next one.